October 11th, it's 4 p.m. Are there any additions or deletions to the minutes? Or sorry, to the agenda? Any changes to the agenda? Okay, and I'd just like to start with a comment or statement. I'd like to thank our officers who joined the thousands of other police officers, first responders, and members of the public on October 4th for the regimental procession and funeral for Constable Rick O'Brien at the Langley Event Center. Constable Rick O'Brien was shot and murdered in the line of duty on September 22nd in Coquitlam. He was 51 years old and left behind his wife and 6 children. It's always upsetting to lose an officer in the line of duty and a reminder of the risks that our first responders face when they go to work. We thank you for the risks you take on in order to keep us safe. So thank you, and our condolences to the family and friends and colleagues of Constable O'Brien. And now I'd like a motion on the minutes. Motion to adopt the minutes. Thank you. Next committee meeting date is November 15th, 2023 at 4 o'clock in council chambers. And first item, Animal Protection Services Monthly Activity Report. Mr. Brownhill.
Through the chair, I have nothing further to add, and I'm open to questions.
Councillor Heed.
Yes, good afternoon. If I could just get some clarification on a couple of issues, and it relates to the service violation issuance in comparison to previous years. And if I'm reading this right, you talk about 257 service calls pertaining to a range of animal control and dog licensing violation. These officers also engage in proactive patrols covering a total of 37 parks, sites, and schools. I certainly understand that. But throughout, for example, the month of August, 32 bylaw violation notices were issued by the SPCA, which is down significantly, especially from 2022, from 204 to 34. I'm sensing we don't have that good of a compliance rate here in Richmond, but is there any explanation for why such a reduction?
Certainly through the chair to Councillor Heed. The reduction noted that you noted with regard to 2022 can be attributed to the fact that last year during the summer months, staff in the SPCA focused on outstanding dog accounts that were delinquent. So priors that had not been followed up responded to the mailer or were outstanding in some other way, shape, or form. So this increase of violations was the result of significant proactive methods, both in patrols and office admin work and following up on outstanding accounts. That's where the reduction seen this year is getting more in line with being out in the parks and on foot more often, rather than following up on the administrative matter of outstanding accounts in the system.
So, just for my clarification, so someone has a dog in Richmond and they choose not to license it. If they're found out in public spaces, they can be ticketed.
Correct.
But how do we characterize that as a statistic if we phone them or they haven't renewed their license? Because they're not required to, but they'll be in violation if they're caught in a public space with the animal.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, no, certainly last summer and earlier into this year, and notably in May and June, the fines issued are also the result of proactive work in the field, but also these are phone calls and follow-ups. So these are door knocks where applicable. These are additional methods, not just an SPCA officer is attending a park and observes a tag that's the wrong color, for example. So I would note the work that's been done on CS12, that there's been an increase to about 151 outstanding dog accounts. That is a 66% decrease from the 444 we had last year. So staff have done, both at SPCA and Animal Protection Services staff have gone to efforts to bring that number down of outstanding accounts, be it accounts that have not followed up and re-registered, residents that have moved on, dogs have passed away, things of that nature.
So just one last question, thank you. That's our staff doing the work versus the SPCA making these phone calls?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, That is administrative staff on the city doing, tallying up the lists that are outstanding. And that's a combination of factors, both SPCA and administrative staff that work together.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
Move received.
All in favor? Okay, pass, thank you. Item number 2, property use and parking.
To the chair, I have, I'm open to questions. I have nothing further to add.
Okay, Councillor Galanders.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the report. I have just a couple questions. CS 16 talks about short-term rentals. And in here, somewhere, it was explained, you know, how you respond to short-term rental, and it said removal of the listing, for example. I'm just curious, how do you remove a listing? Like, what platform would it need to have been listed on in order for the city to be able to remove a listing?
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, the listing is typically something such as Airbnb, and we achieve voluntary compliance from the subject of complaint to remove the listing. If it's not removed, then we'll take further enforcement action.
Okay, yeah, that was my question, is kind of what can we do? Because I've been seeing reports, not necessarily in Richmond, but in Vancouver, where people have complained, their license is canceled with the city or whatever, but then Airbnb keeps the listing up.
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, in our case, in the city of Richmond, if the listing's still up, we'll revisit the subject of complaint and issue additional fines or escalate our action.
Great. And then just one more question on CS 20. The year-to-date budget for other bylaw fines is $58,600. The year-to-date actual is, almost double that, or more than double that, sorry, 129,000. I was trying to figure out what exactly that was related to. You did mention that there was that court case coming up for that property on 6th Road. I didn't know if that was what was included in the other, or why it's so much bigger than what we budgeted for.
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, we've certainly seen an uptick in activity regarding short-term rentals, but we've seen an uptick in activity across the board in terms of bylaw violation notifications. So it's been a busy year.
Okay, maybe there's some way to break down the other into, like, just because it's such a huge number, it'd be nice to see what falls under the other, because I just didn't know.
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, on CS 19, there's a breakdown of the ticket
That's
issues.
the other? Okay. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Councillor McNulty?
Yes, just thank you. Following on that, if I may, short-term rental listing, are we still monitoring Craigslist for unlawful or listings, et cetera, as opposed to rental?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, generally the platforms such as Airbnb, we have a combination of different factors. We do rely on complaints from the public, who do a fantastic work of identifying the city to where there are problem areas and potential short-term rentals. We also do proactive scanning with staff who routinely, daily monitor those sites.
I'm wondering, we all stand around here and thump our chests and say we need rental, rental, rental. And I wonder if we shouldn't have a look at our bylaws on this kind of thing. And I'll see whether, because there's no way I'd rent you an apartment or a room when I can rent it out every night for $300, $400, $500 a night and make $30,000 a month as opposed to your $2,000. So I guess I throw that out as a question to other members of committee too, whether we should be not looking at it and asking staff to see if I'm even on the right track. But, you keep reading around and we know it has been abused, and we know people put it on Craigslist, et cetera, and it's not available for rent. And I know we go on complaints, but I think given the crisis that we're in, and we will continue to be, maybe we should be looking at it. I'd ask you for your support back to us, and whether I'm on the right track on it. I think we should have some short-term rental, but I don't think it should be wide open necessarily. So I don't know what other members think. So It's just a comment on that, okay? The other thing I have, which bothers me no end, we have water restrictions. We have going to phase 2. We're told everything's down, and we only get 151 calls. And we've got the greenest city boulevards in front of us and beautiful mega homes in the city. I've launched 2 complaints upstairs quite nicely. And the one that I launched on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and this morning, and I do my walk at 6:15, a certain multifamily establishment has things on full blast. Okay, we're still in water restriction, I think, till tomorrow. Correct me, it's the 19th, and whatever. But my point here is, yeah, we've had rain and all that. These people have violated, et cetera, and we have water pooling in troughs this deep. You know, I couldn't quite row in it, but I could do it. So I guess my question there is, when it comes up next year, again, I'm going to ask us to look at something, because they're not the only one. I mean, I think you can see it all over Richmond, and very few people phone in on rattling their neighbors. But if we get into that situation again, I've got the photographs. It's tough taking a photograph down on there at 6:15 in the morning when I'm trying to do a walk, but I have the evidence, date and time and everything, and see things spraying out 30 feet. And they could say they're watering trees or plants, but they're not. And that's so. It's something that we, I think, need to do more of an educational thing, and say you could be fined. I don't. If we're into this kind of situation in another year or whatever, and I think with climate change, it's only going to be. But anyhow, I got my hobby horse off on it, and anybody want to see my pictures? I've got lots of them, and that with that. So it's something I'm appalled that there are only 151. So. I hope that we can, we do something a little bit better in that. And it's all over the Lower Mainland, I'm sure, not just in Richmond. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for clarification, we have 2 full-time staff now for the short-term rental? Is that?
To the chair, that's correct. These are temporary full-time staff that have roughly a year's funding associated with them. So staff will be coming back likely in the new year with a report to council, as there's an outstanding referral regarding the status of those 2 short-term rental positions. In addition to that, there is a outstanding referral for a soil position as well, which is also TFT.
Okay, so we have an active program. We have different bylaws than Vancouver. We set them up a few years ago in terms of clearly defining our bed and breakfast, clearly defining what short-term rental was, what that looked like, what people had to do to have a license for that, and then the cracking down on people that don't have licenses or who are abusing it one way or the other.
To the chair, that is correct. There's the business license and bylaws. In addition to that, there are violations contained within the zoning licensing bylaw, and there's roughly 4 different types of short-term rentals. It's predominantly now what we would construe to be boarding and lodging licenses. A certain amount of violations occur around bed and breakfast as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hobbs.
Thanks, and through the chair. While on the short-term rentals, I think Councillor McNulty brought up a really good point, and that's something that I would also be interested in looking at again, despite the fact that we have pretty well-vetted bylaws. Because I think the situation has changed a lot in the last few years, and there might be room for improvement. So that's something I'd be totally willing to look at. In the report, the enforcement is up, and that's really good. We do have dedicated staff, as we just heard, working on it. But just almost a rhetorical question. In the report, it says kind of the reason that the numbers are up is because we have staff dedicated working on it. And I get the point. But the fact is, there's a problem out there with short-term rentals. And it's probably causing a significant problem when it comes to long-term rentals. So working families and that kind of thing who are looking for a house or a condo or whatever to rent. So the work does exist. If we didn't have staff, it would exist and nothing would be done about it. the fact is, we do have staff, which is very good, and they are working on it. So compliments to staff for having those high numbers. Just one other question on the parking situation, pretty significant numbers here, and I wondered if you could just comment on kind of how that's dispersed through the city. In my mind, it's probably mostly in the commercial district. I know we have technology that helps us do enforcement there. Some of it would be by complaint in neighborhoods or commercial businesses. But can you just comment on that? Because they are significant numbers. It's just hard to tell where they happen and what is the origin of most of the enforcement and revenue.
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, that's correct. Predominantly, roughly 50% or more of the violations are typically around no stopping areas or parking a lot without a permit or parking without payment. So again, around a meter. And the bulk of that activity occurs in the core. There are certain facilities where you get quite a bit of activity where people are not paying the meter. But we do have a large range of violations that occur, but I'd say a good 50% of that is around those three violations. Parking in a no stopping zone, parking without necessary monthly permit, and parking without payment.
Just one quick follow-up, if I may. What's the compliance like, and you might not have this information, what's the compliance like on payment for parking tickets when they're first issued?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, in a good year, we are in around 50% of payment within the period in which you wouldn't incur a higher or escalating fine. And then the remainder goes to a collection agency. Of that, we were roughly 20 to 25% we recover within a longer period of time. Staff have made a number of different outreach efforts to the provincial government to request that agencies such as ICBC be deemed with the responsibility of collecting fines when it comes time for drivers to renew their licenses or their insurance. My understanding from our peer group of municipalities and including the UBSM are in favor of this. Staff are still having ongoing discussions with the province about whether ICBC or another Crown agency could take that responsibility onward.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you mentioned that. That is a good option for collection. Thank you.
Councillor Heed?
Yes, just a comment on the latest. We've been battling that for 10 years. Good luck. It's not going to happen. Just a comment on ICBC collecting our fines. When I was there, we were battling. We wanted that. It's not going to happen. I want to follow up on what Councillor McNulty brought up on the short-term rentals, and that was part of my questions here, but kind of relates to a discussion we had in council last night by Councillor Wolf, where he brought it up. And we understand the enforcement part. We understand that given the numbers of people you have, you can increase your enforcement, but it doesn't seem to deter the activity. And as you know, Mr. Corrado, from your wealth of knowledge, that it's not just enforcement that's going to make a difference here. It's preventing it to begin with. A couple of things that have come to my mind, and I know we passed the fines yesterday, and one of it was the Airbnb. I'm wondering if you have available, we can have a list of fines across Metro Vancouver with respect to what's going on, because if we're going to deter the activity, and it's almost like a traffic violation notice given to someone. If it's $15, they'll keep doing it. If it's $515, they may consider stopping. I truly think that we have to take a route of dealing with this, like almost raising it 1,000%. These people are making money off of it. And if we want to deter the activity, they should be on first offense fine, but I think the actual fee they have to pay should be well in excess of what they're paying right now. And I think we as a committee should start to think of how we can do that and how we can move it through the channels within our bureaucracy to have this take place. So maybe we want to consider, I'm just saying, consider a referral motion to look at dramatically increasing the fee for a license for them to have it, and in the same breath or same referral, talking about how we're going to significantly fine the individual that has broken the law here. Because as you mentioned, when we try to look at some of our rental housing shortages we have, and you're exactly right, Councillor McNulty, if someone can make an excessive amount of money by renting it out 1 week over 1 month to get the full rental, we should do it. So what I would like this committee to consider is, number one, of how we dramatically increase the fee, the license fee. As Councillor Wolf pointed out, and I think we probably should have given some more thought to that. And number two, how we significantly increase the fine with respect to a violation of those short-term rentals. So, Madam Chair, I want to leave that for your comment before I go to some additional questions I have for Mr. Corrado.
Would you like to answer first?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Heed, just a few interesting facts. So we usually issue a bundle of tickets, and we have a number of violations. It can include advertising, the dwelling under 30 days, a violation for short-term rental under 30 days, not having permission from the strata. So typically we bundle these tickets together. When it comes to there are restrictions in the provincial legislation. So a bylaw violation notification is capped at 500. Municipal ticket information is capped at 1,000. In the case of repeat offenders, we would most likely take them to long-form prosecution in provincial court. We would see a series of fines accrue prior to that, but the city is definitely issuing probably more violations than the vast majority of other cities, and we issue quite a few violations in lump sum. Through the chair to Councillor Heed, to your point, there are definitely some profit margins which are substantial for some of the repeat violators that we are contending with. And one other note for the licensing fees. The city's licensing requirements are a little bit more restrictive than the peer group. For example, for boarding and lodging, there's a requirement of no more than 2 people staying in the lodge, rather than most municipalities go by number of rooms. In addition to that, the owner or operator must be present in the residence. So those are some of the factors when trying to compare what our rates are compared to other cities, although we are roughly 14% below the median of our peer group.
So I guess my response to that is we've got to look at license fee. What can we, are our license fees capped? I don't believe they are. It's based on our bylaw.
Through the chair to Councillor Heath, they are not capped. They can be amended through consolidated fees bylaw amendment. Typically, license fees accrue in conjunction with CPI. However, there is precedent to do a market analysis, and then the market analysis would roughly put us in line where our peer group is. And
I'm not interested in market analysis. I'm interested in stopping the violations here. So the referral I'd like to make at this particular time is we consider options for increasing significantly the short-term rental licensing business license fee that's required for residents in Richmond. I just made it.
Okay. Any further comments on this? Sorry?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Hobbs? Well, sorry, other people still have their hands up from other things, so.
And I'm not finished.
On this, can you just put your hand up if you'd like to speak on this? Councillor Galanders.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I support that and that Vancouver did do that. I believe they just went from $170 to $1,000. So it's being done. And I don't see the harm in doing that. I mean, if you have a bed and breakfast that you want to do properly, I don't think that's going to deter you. But I think if people are doing the illegal or, yeah, I don't think it's going to, I think it's going to, I don't think it's going to cause any harm to do that. I think it'll make people go, oh, yeah, I don't really want to pay the fee. I'd rather just rent it out to a tenant. That's the desired effect.
Councillor Day, you had a comment on this?
Yeah, and I hear where you're going at. The problem is the ones who are paying the license fee are the ones following the rules. The ones who aren't following the rules are not paying the license fee. So really, you're punishing the people who have gone through all the hoops to be licensed and inspected and registered. And so I would suggest that you allow, staff to evaluate the situation and come up with a plan that can work, because they know the system better than anybody.
And my response to that is, I agree with you, and that's why I had that second part of it where it talked about the enforcement part, to make sure that we're able to do that. But I understand there's some limitations on the enforcement part. So I would, the referral could certainly address what Councillor Day has just mentioned, to ensure we have a comprehensive approach to this. Because at the end of the day, we want to deter the activity and make sure we have suitable housing for people that need rental space here in Richmond. I can tell you right now, this is not just our problem. This is a all over North America problem because of this. So I think we can't just keep giving tickets out, but where they're needed, we should have an impact on it. It's got to be a comprehensive approach to deal with this.
Can I just
Mr. Corrado has a wealth of experience in dealing with these things, and I think he's well aware of what needs to be done.
guys have a follow-up question to staff?
Yeah, you're still on.
Perfect, thank you. Oh, thank you. When you are finding an illegal short-term rental where the owners are not living in there, it's not allowed with the condo unit, condo complex, it's not allowed to the city because they're not registered, so on and so forth. So you said you would give a bundle of tickets, so it wasn't just one ticket, you're giving multiple tickets. What is, under the rules that are in place that go between $500 and $1,000, what's the absolute maximum that you could find someone under those various categories for an illegal B&B that is not registered with the city?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, so as I mentioned, there's this sort of a stepwise approach, which is the tickets which are issued under the bylaw violation, notice of bylaw violation adjudication bylaw. It would be $500 per violation per inspection. And then through that, we would look at municipal ticket information and then long form prosecution. And then I believe the threshold is $50,000 per offense in provincial court. Of course, we do seek that type of bylaw enforcement action when we have repeat violators. So it's not typically the first step that we take, but it is something that we're willing to pursue if necessary.
Councillor Hobbs, you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, on the referral of the motion. Yeah, I have no trouble looking at the fee, but kind of as the discussion has gone, Councillor Day, Councillor Heed have both kind of touched on it now. I think it's important that whatever we end up with the final wording, that it's not too restrictive, because as we just heard, it is more than just about the fee. There's such a huge financial incentive to break our existing bylaws that I think we should have it broad enough that we can look at other things that we can do as well as the fee. And so I just want to make sure the final wording, whatever that is a little bit more broad so that staff have the ability to assess different factors that might help us improve the situation.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is consider options to increase short-term rental license fee. And violation fees? Yes. Violation fines? Is that clear?
To the chair, we are capped by provincial legislation to how much we can charge, and I believe.
We're already at the max.
Correct, we're near the max. I believe we're just under the $500 threshold in certain violations, so we're really at the max. That would require a change to provincial legislation, something that staff is also having conversations with provincial staff about doing so. And there are many municipalities that are similarly, their staff are requesting an elevation of the threshold of that $500 BVN fine threshold. We're restricted at that by provincial legislation, however.
Because when we did bring this in, the goal was to limit it, and the goal was to be strict with it. And so we did go to the maximum for most things. Changing the licensing fee, if somebody's already compliant in getting a license, then presumably they're compliant in trying to do the rest of whatever they're supposed to be. So the people that we're catching are the unlicensed people that are blowing the doors off everything.
To the chair, there is additional risk if we were to tag on additional violations. There could be potential being construed as being ultra vires, or if there could be double jeopardy, it might look like piling on violations beyond that point. There is definitely case law to suggest that could be interpreted as such.
Councillor McNulty.
I haven't spoken on this. I support 100%, and thank you for following along. Let's not melt before we start. Let's let staff look at it and come back with it, on it. My question would be, if it's in an apartment, maybe the strata should be fined by allowing it to happen. And the percentage of rentals that they let us. I don't know what the situation is. We have professional staff here. Let them do the job, come back, and then we can decide whether we want to go up from $350 to $500 or whatever. And what else can we do, okay, to encourage those suites to be available for rent as opposed to rent each day, and go from there. So let's let staff do that, and that's why I second. I think we're on the right track. I think it behooves us to look at it, not solve it here today. They can come back with a report according to the direction. So good hunting. Thank you.
Okay. Call the question? Sorry. Oh, Councillor Wolf, he has a comment on this? Okay.
No, mine can be after. You can do your motion first.
Sorry, you have to repeat it. We didn't hear you.
Sorry, you can go ahead with the question and motion. I'll comment after.
Okay. All right, call the question. Okay, all in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Okay, passes. Okay, and Councillor Wolf, Councillor Wolf had a question on item number 2, property use and parking enforcement monthly, right? Can we go to Councillor
Yeah.
Wolf?
Yes, correct. Thank you. I just have a few further comments. I really appreciate the discussion that was just had there, and the motion that the committee made. Thank you for that. I also wanted to echo Councillor Galander's question early on about the category of other bylaw fines and what are they, as they've gone up twice what we budgeted them to go up. And I did hear staff's comment that it is that list in the table of ticket issuances. My first question is about those that list on page 19 at the top in the table. Table 2. The short-term rental offenses, for example, 54 in August, 456 year to date. My question is, how do those numbers match or relate to the data in figure 2 on page 16? So for short-term rentals there, the number of calls for service is 332. So would that mean that the tickets, the 54 tickets in August, were from those 332 calls for service?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, these numbers represent year-to-date statistics, but I would also add calls for service represent one stream of the investigative path. It's roughly a hybrid of calls from the public, along with proactive staffing, proactive investigative techniques as well. Staff are scanning the different sites and using different proactive methods of going out in the community and looking for information regarding violators.
Thank you for that. Just to follow up through the chair. Yeah, just since my conversation with Mr. Corrado on this matter, I think it's a few weeks ago, and learning that our number of listings in the city is somewhere between 1,200 and 2,100, and it's such a large range because of the kind of software tool used to find listings in Richmond. And just myself, just this week, through researching, I've found a couple more companies that provide listings. So we can, as we heard earlier today, we can have some taken down off of one server, but they can easily pop up on another, especially for return clients. I'm assuming they would go back to the same people or same place. My next, was that it on that one? Oh yeah, just to comment in support of what was just passed there. Yeah, we have that $158 fee for the business license. I didn't hear that we're capped on that, right? It's the fine, the 500 that the province has us capped at. But the fee, I think we have room to grow. Is there a limit to that, Mr. Corrado?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, no, there's no cap on that consolidated fee, and that can be increased through an amendment.
Okay, great, thank you. My final two questions are on different items. One of them is on, actually maybe I can limit it to the last item. So it's on the soil activity. And seeing on page 17, that's where most of the information is here. I'm just, again, trying to get my handle on this, as we just approved last night to do a very minor fee increase for soil removal and deposit, as opposed to the standard rate that most other things got. And so if I'm trying to figure out how many active, it's not like listings like short-term rental, but active locations are on our list of some level. So if I look on the bottom of 17, we got 19 soil deposit proposals. So if I add that to the 13 approved sites that we're monitoring, add that to the 29 properties that are considered non-compliant, and then add that to the 4 more that were just added above this. So I see that we're now at 65. Would that be accurate? That's how much staff is aware of, and our 2 staff people in this role are aware of. Would that be accurate, or am I way off, or am I missing a big category?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, roughly in terms of we conducted 70 inspections for the month of August, and we do have 2 staff now. So they're busy with the soil application process, the monitoring of that lawful or regulatory process, in addition to doing proactive investigative work and responding to calls for service. I would add, just regarding the volume fee for soil, it's a bit confusing because the current rate is $1 per cubic meter if the soil is sourced locally. So it's $1, and typically those volumes could be anywhere from 10,000 or more. So that 2 cents actually adds up to being quite a bit, and that 2 cents is roughly in line with CPI because the rate is $1, if that makes sense, per cubic meter. If it's sourced locally, it's $2 per cubic meter if it's sourced outside of Richmond. So it would represent a significant increase.
The item we were discussing last night. I appreciate that clarification. My next follow-up question to this, I guess it's just 2 short ones. In the new stop order removal orders, there's 4 added here. I'm aware of all the sites. I guess the Mitchell Road one's a bit of an oddity. It's an industrial site. It's a demolition company operating on Mitchell Island. But the other 3 are all, there's like residences on the parcels that are potentially in some form of violation. So my question is, for those 3, is the issue that staff have identified with the soil activity, is it in the residential footprint, the plate, or is it happening outside the home plate?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I would have to go back and look at each case to determine whether the soil deposition is outside of the home plate, to answer your question.
Okay. Then finally, my last follow-up here is on the top of page 18. It mentions a court case was set for September 21st, which is now passed. And it was about, it doesn't say the address, but some matter on number 6 Road. Are we able to know today if that was favored well for the city, the court case, or is it still ongoing?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we had a successful outcome for that court case, and we're awaiting the sentencing in December.
Okay, great. Thanks for ending on the positive note there.
Thank you very much. I had a couple questions as well. I was surprised to see property use calls up 65%. That's amazing. But my specific question was about water restrictions. We had 151 calls this year, and last year was only 45. Is that due to more education and the public are just getting more engaged? Or do we have more bylaw officers out there noticing people watering when they shouldn't be?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, typically we have a multitude of variables. We do work with our communications department to proactively put the message out there. We do have a consecutive dry season, so the public is more aware, and they do know how to efficiently report these activities. I might also add that we do have a fair number of repeat calls regarding certain properties. So it's a combination of different variables.
Well, great work. I mean, it's nice to see. I mean, I personally am proud of my brown lawn, you know. We don't need a green grass to have a nice backyard. I was also really pleased on CS 17 to read about the proactive work that inspectors are doing about grease traps. That's a problem that just escalates if it's not dealt with quickly and when it's a small problem. On CS 17, the soil activities, there was quite a few. Was the Agricultural Land Commission involved in any of those?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, the Agricultural Land Commission staff is certainly involved in many of these. And we do work in conjunction with them on most files.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Yes, just a couple of questions. I think I just need a clarification on one. If you go to CS 15, CS 16, you look at figure 1, your graph that you use there, and look at figure 2, you're naming them the same thing: property use calls for service comparison, August year to date, and property use calls for service. I'm assuming in figure 1, you're relating it to boulevard, unsightly premises, noise, recycling, and zoning. In figure 2, I'm assuming you're relating it to short-term rental, smoking, and signs, right? It's not a total of it all, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, that is correct. These are individual bylaws and the offenses that are contained within those bylaws. So each one of the series of bars would be contained in a separate bylaw.
Okay, so you could almost put it all in one, but that's fine. The other one I have, Mr. Corrado, it relates to some of your discussion in CS 17, the second paragraph, smoking-related calls have trends upward. I guess my question to you, and if you want to provide the answer, if you've got a later on, fine, through a memo is fine. What number of calls would you get related to drug consumption, such as smoking cannabis?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, I can't, off the top of my head, I can't imagine we get much of a percentage at all related to smoking cannabis. The vast majority of these calls involve vaping of e-cigarettes or tobacco, and many of them occur around the entrances or exits of businesses.
So would we differentiate between drug consumption and those calls related to smoking? And if so, I'm going to ask you for a number of total drug consumption complaints we get in public places.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, the public health bylaw lists cannabis as a prohibited substance along with tobacco. And it does have a smaller category called a substance, which is prohibited as well. I can't recall a substance other than tobacco or cannabis in my tenure, in my position, being a call for service.
Thank you. And one last thing, Mr. Corrado. You've heard the discussion going on because it's been in all the local media and union and municipalities and all that, drug consumption in public places. I'm assuming, it may go to Chief Shohan's group, the RCMP, or it may come to you. Are you aware of any dramatic increase in calls of drug consumption in public places?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, as most of those calls would flow through bylaws to police, I would defer that question to the chief of the RCMP for if there's been an increase in those CDSA consumption related offenses.
Thank you.
So motion? Staff recommendation? All in favor? Fire Rescue Monthly Activity Report.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I have nothing further to add to the report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councillor McNulty?
Yeah, thank you. Great report. Thank you very much for the report, and thank our men and women for the service they do. It behooves me to see the number of incidents fire rescue is involved in. It's 3 per day minimum. And when I look at medical, for example, I look 537 for the month of August this year. Is that because the ambulance service is not moving as fast again? Do we have has the issue still perpetuated where they're not getting there in terms of medical? I'm thankful you are there, but the number is way up there. And looking at each of the reports that we've come monthly, the numbers are significantly high. And especially on your graph on whatever, page 28, it's way up there.
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, the ambulance service still responds in partnership with us to all those calls. We very, very rarely attend a medical incident where the ambulance would not be coming. And so all of those calls that we are responding to, the ambulance service is responding either alongside us or shortly thereafter.
Okay. Well, all I can say is good work. Obviously, same with fire suppression. And the interesting, I like the tracking of staying at emergency 30 minutes as opposed to those coming down. How many of those calls do we record them on page 28? The medical toll with drugs, overdose, drunkenness, or whatever, any of that kind of thing? Or are they just, I look on our overdosing, they're only 25. That's an accurate number?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, that is an accurate number for the calls that we are summoned to go and attend to.
Okay, and that's what you allocate. Okay, but the sick and the fainting surprise me. Anyhow, I appreciate I appreciate the summary on page 30 of what you've categorized those done. So great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for the report. On page 27, you mentioned a boat fire near River Road. Was there any environmental damage or issues due to that fire?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, we didn't notice any at the time. I believe the staff at the marina had issued or initiated a booming system already, as is per their requirement at the time. So we didn't notice any problems that we had to deal with.
Okay, and then also on page 27, your report talks about a bear spray incident in a hotel and a youth caught with a jerry can after a manhole or storm drain was set on fire. Were there any arrests made in those two incidents that you're aware of?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I'd have to defer that question to my RCMP colleague, thank you.
Okay, we'll wait for the chief then.
Yeah, we wouldn't be participating in an arrest of a person that way.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councillor Heed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, you may be doing this through some other work with respect to what's going on with some of our problems with the low barrier housing on Alderbridge Way here. And Councillor McNulty just asked a similar question to this. And I look at your actual maps here. With the data you have, is there any way we could, for example, separate for our information since the, we can go on an annual basis since the low barrier housing was put in place on Alderbridge, on the overdose calls within, say, a 7-8 block area?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, yes, we can do that, and I believe we've supplied that piece of information recently.
Okay.
We can certainly mine our records management system for another.
I just thought it'd be certainly valuable for us as we move to deal with some of our problems.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a recommendation?
So moved.
All in favor? Thank you. Anything else there, Chief?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I've got two items I'd like to leave with your committee with a verbal update today. The first is right now we're right in the middle of National Fire Prevention Week, and so every fire service across the country is participating in Fire Prevention Week. Richmond Fire Rescue is also supporting that initiative, and this year the focus is on preventing fires and fire accidents in the kitchen and in cooking areas. And so our very good outreach squad has put together a series of video vignettes that they've been releasing over the course of this week. I think as of today they've released 2, and there'll be a third one released on Friday, and they're very excellent if you've had a chance to see them. Or if you haven't, please take a look at that. And the second item is that next Thursday, the 19th of October, is BC Shakeout Day, the earthquake exercise day. The province typically issues that as a practice. It's very simulated, of course, and our emergency programs team will work with our outreach staff as well to prep the public on ways of preparing for disaster throughout the course of the week. And on the 19th at 19 minutes after 10 in the morning is when the simulated seismic event will happen. My understanding is that the province is not going to issue a emergency notification system this year through cell phones like they normally would. However, we were going to be exercising our city emergency notification system to select staff and practice an EOC activity call out next Thursday. So, and I'll follow up with a memo to yourself and the Mayor and Council as well. So, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I can.
Sorry, before you go, do we have any informational, educational program that's coming out for Halloween for fireworks and that kind of stuff?
We will be issuing some information out on that once Fire Prevention Week ends, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Has he warmed it up for you?
Don't worry about the guys in your life.
Chief Superintendent? As long as it's not incendiary, it's all fine.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, councillors and staff. First of all, thank you for your kind remarks honoring our fallen member, Constable Rick O'Brien. With respect to this month's report, I don't have any additions or changes, but I welcome any questions or comments anyone may have.
Councillor Heed.
I think there were a couple of questions that came up that you may have heard, and the number one question is related to the complaints of people consuming illicit drugs in public spaces. Do we have a number of that, or do we have any increase or knowledge? Because there's such public discourse on this right now.
To the chair, to Councillor Heath, I have not heard any concerns. I am part of regular briefings and updates with the Frontline and all the commanders. There's nothing noticeable or concerning that has been brought to my attention, but I can certainly look a little deeper into it. But if there were issues, if there were concerns that there were increased in calls of service from citizens about individuals consuming drugs in certain areas, that would certainly form part of our daily reporting, but I haven't read anything relating to that.
And, certainly, as the chair can recognize, she was at UBCM, and there was a lot of discussion on this. And, I haven't personally, I put out to my fellow councillors here, is I haven't noticed people injecting and all that in the parks and all that. I don't know if there's some political grandstanding going on by some of the other municipal officials with respect to that, but I just don't want us to be dragged down without the data that's could be available to us on that. So certainly.
And also, if I may add through the chair to Councillor Heath, our officers, whether it's frontline in vehicles or on bikes or foot patrol, they may encounter an individual who may be consuming drugs, and it'll be the police officer's responsibility to obviously there's no enforcement options available, but they may take whatever action they have to take, but a file may not be generated because it's handled right at the scene, right? So.
Good, and if I could just have you comment on it. Going to CS 39, there were 94 police apprehensions. The average hospital time was 144 minutes. From my point, in my experience, that's unacceptable. Is there any reason why Vancouver Coastal Health has that type of a delay in having the person looked at?
To the chair, to Councillor Heath, those numbers do fluctuate, and sometimes we have certain clients, they end up spending more time than the average time at the hospital, and those averages sometimes can skew these numbers. But I know that we have a good care and good response when it comes to Vancouver Coastal Health. They recognize that these clients, do need timely help, but it's just the odd. It may be half a dozen, or it could be few that go way above and beyond. I don't want to say normal time, but it goes in a prolonged, extended period of time that can skew these numbers. In speaking with some of my other colleagues in Richmond, we are still doing really well, and even as far as if I can refer to Peel Police, their wait times are 4 or 5 times longer than ours. And sometimes it's the availability of the medical staff. Sometimes it depends on the client we have. If the apprehended person is causing a scene where they require an immediate intervention, that's done as well. But there are other medical priorities that are being addressed too. And if the individuals are being compliant and there are no safety concerns, sometimes they may not be looked at right away by the medical staff.
Does Fox 40 get involved in a lot of these?
Yeah, sorry, Fox 80?
Fox 80.
Yeah, sorry, to the chair, to Councillor Heath. Fox 80, our member and our nurse, they're always involved in all of these files.
Good.
And they may be supported they are also supported by our frontline staff as well, when needed.
Just want to make one last comment. We were at a luncheon the other day, and it was the day of Constable O'Brien's service. And I want to tell you, your representative was a fine representative, as was Chief Wishlaw and his deputy chief that were there. I was very proud to be around these first responders at this luncheon the other day. We had a lot of good laughs too. I didn't realize I'd met your staff sergeant many, many years ago, and so, you know, you've got some fine representatives within our service here. I was very proud of them last Wednesday.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to get back into the homeless thing again. By the way, it's good if you guys all speak closer to the mic, because it's really hard for us to hear back here, just so you know. So the provincial government has proposed changes that would restrict drug use within 6 meters of a residential building or business, and 15 meters radius away from playgrounds, pools, skateboard parks, beaches, so on and so forth. I understand those were proposed changes. Do you know if those have come through yet?
To the chair, to Councillor Day, it's my understanding that they.
Looks like our manager is going to speak to this.
Thank you, Cecilia. I'm sorry.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, they have been tabled but not passed yet.
Not passed yet. So my question to you, Chief, is so I'm hoping that these changes do get passed. How will that change how you deal with homeless people? Because I know it's not illegal to be homeless, but will these rules help you to better monitor the situation and deal with people who are, you know within that radius?
Thank you for that question. To the chair, to Councillor Day. Police's role in this pilot project, which involves these modifications, is not for enforcement. So if there are calls to service where individuals are in those areas where those exemptions apply, we will not be there arresting or prosecuting any individuals. But simply, if the grounds exist, obviously the arrest can be made, but it depends on the quantity the person is possessing. But it'll be more towards public safety, and it'll be more towards offering these individuals information regarding any support services or whatever else they require. But that's kind of the extent of the police role, is to engage with the individual and try to provide them with any contact numbers or support services and then it's up to the other individual whether they want to accept it or not. So there is a card that's printed that has information of services that are available to these individuals, and our job is to make sure that we can provide them with those cards, and then hopefully some of these individuals can get the benefit of the services that are available to them.
So thank you for that. Just to follow up on the 6 meter rule, assuming it gets passed, will that would it be good to educate the public that this is the new rule, that you're not allowed to do drug consumption within 6 meters of a residential area? Is that something that you can almost do like posters or something to remind people that you're within the 6 meter radius, so don't be shooting up here, because if you do, the police will be called. Do you think that sort of education would be helpful for residential and commercial people?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Day, we will definitely do that, and through our communications unit, and I'm sure with our bylaw partners as well. Some sort of communication needs to be communicated to the public. Obviously, if this passes through, there will be a provincial announcement, but we'll make sure at the local level, at the policing level, that we have that educational and informational piece to our public as well.
I think that'll make people feel better. My last question is, I understand you have 2 recruiting events coming up. If we find recruits that are suitable, do they then go to Home Depot and then come back again?
Yes, I will touch on that. Thank you for the question, and through the chair to Councillor Day. I'm going to touch on that at the end as well. But to answer your question, anyone who's interested in joining the police force, they have the ability not only to come back to BC if they're joining from BC, but there's also a very strong likelihood that they can come back to the city of their choice. And I have, I know that, we have individuals who are Richmond natives, Richmond citizens who have joined the police force and they have come back to serve their community. So to answer your question, yes.
That's great news, because, Richmond's pretty special and very multicultural, and I think it's great if people who are born and raised here end up coming back to serve here, because I think they bring something special. Yeah.
Yes, and again, through the chair to Councillor Day, earlier this year when we had our youth academy of 32 youths from all different backgrounds, and when I spoke to some of them, even though they were grade 12 students, their interest and desire was to, a number of them, not only policing, but, frontline, our frontline responders, but it's a diverse group, and it's nice to see that, we are continuing to add to our diversity in this city. So it's nice to see that interest from student level to adult levels as well.
It's very exciting. And thank you for working so hard on the hate crimes and hate incidents. It's nice to see those numbers down significantly.
Thank you, through the chair to Councillor Day. We had a sort of unfortunate incidents in the month of August, and but our teams, our youth engagement team, our frontline officers, we have been working closely with school district and our other partners, and we'll continue to stay on top of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thanks very much. A couple comments on it. Whatever. I guess following on Councillor Day, with the province coming out with a 6-meter rule, etc. I hate to be a cynic, but I think it's symbolic. Where do these people? It's like when we put the smoking rule in. You can't smoke within. Well, the only way it got enforced was not call you or call the bylaw officer. We as parents said, get away from our kids and get the hell off the park, and you want to smoke, go over there. So I guess my question on that, and through you, and if you're part of it, what are you going to enforce, I guess is one, and where do these people go? That's the issue. Following where do they go? They're going to do it anyhow, and I think we have to have some humanity and compassion, whatever. I don't have the answer. I think that needs to be discussed for the province. So that's why I say, it's great to stand and say, you can't do this, and you can't do that, and you can't do that. Well, what can I do, and where can I go? Because I'm going to do it. So if you're part of a group that didn't take that back, from my perspective anyhow, where to go. The other thing is too, got a couple hobby horses here. No criticism of you and people being at the hospital for 144 minutes. 2 hours, 24 minutes. That's what it is, not 144 minutes, 2 hours, 24 minutes. My wife worked at the hospital for 40 years. I think this kind of concern that we need to let Vancouver Coastal Health and the Vancouver Coastal Health Board know that we're taking people, officers off the street, if you wish, and they're waiting here because the transfer process is inefficient, or let's examine it and how do we do it, whether it be fire rescue or whatever, okay? Because they, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the officer has to stay away with the patient until it's handed over, until a nurse or doctor or whoever takes them in. You guys would know best, okay? That is the inefficient part. If nobody can come for 2 hours to deal with it, it's not your fault. It's the team. We're trying to be a team here. So I think it might be something we might consider asking Vancouver Coastal Health, or even to come and get some answers, whether staff could take that under advisement. What is the process when an officer comes with somebody's out there, emergency? I know in the ambulance, walking to the hospital for a function or whatever, they're staying and the patient's still in the van. And an hour and a half later, I've come back after the function, they're still there and they haven't moved in. So anyhow, on it. I do have a couple of issues, and thank you for being hard on the use of devices and safety within our community. The e-scooter video, I'm glad we're doing it and what have you. I think we, as a city, need to outline the rules of not only e-scooters, but bicycles. I've had a lot of complaints of people complaining about riding of bicycles on sidewalks, okay? Without helmets, in flip-flops, and this, and those kinds of things. And I think we need to outline the rules and very carefully, and we have the vehicle to get it out to staffs, at least our staff. We've got production across the way. I don't know whether we produce this for the RCMP or not, but we could have a city one, that these are the things you should be doing and you shouldn't be doing. And this is maybe helmets are mandatory, shoes are mandatory. I don't know how you can ride a bike in flip-flops. But anyhow, if you have to, in braking and what have you. But I think that part of education, we need to look at. And as I say, I've had a number of things on that. I want to thank the Force for being with Pathways and being at their barbecue over the summer, and those kinds of activities pay off huge dividends in the community. So thank the men and women for that. Greatly appreciated. And I know the community group is always out there, and everybody is a cheerleader and ambassador for community safety, but them in particular highlighting. We've got people who are blend right into the community and deal with it personality-wise, and I'm talking about. One of the things I also would like to see us push is the Block Watch program. I, in a way, I don't feel it's catching on like it used to. I mean, I'm a victim of it. When we started Block Watch in the city, I was a Block Watch captain. I had the signs, we paid for everything, I did. I guess I should be doing it again. But important, but I really think, again, more so in the magazine, I really think we could take advantage of that. And it can be printed more than once a month. Remember, it's only paper, but information is valuable on it. So thank you for that. I bring that up. And the biggest one I have right now, and I think Richmond is going crazy on it, is failing to stop at stop signs, in subdivisions especially. I know our men and women that volunteers do a great job on the main roads, etc., but I'd like them to see. I know it probably is not that much traffic, but I swerve every time I see them come through the intersection, and they come out now well beyond almost to the road edge. So I think that's something we need. Even I got a letter, and I will admit it. I got a letter down there, and I thought I had a green light down it. And that's the other thing, and I want to point out to traffic at River Road in Cambie. That is very confusing when you only can line up 10 cars from 3 Road, and you're coming down out of River Road, and you're coming down the road behind. They stack up. It's not a tenable situation, I believe, from Community Safety and actually Public Works. It's on the agenda. I think it needs examination. Okay, it's and that's they don't synchronize and traffic doesn't move out, and there's a left hand in front of you, and you've got a gas station there that needs some arrows in it. You got Tim Hortons coming out the back door, and Mark and others, please have staff look at it, and I'll put it on the agenda, chairperson, at the next Public Works meeting. I'm not on the committee, but I really think we've got to look at that particular intersection as well, and failing to stop. That's all I have. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
passed on
And
to.
To the
And
chair,
thank
to
everybody.
Councillor McNulty, if I may just quickly address some of the points that you raised with mental health apprehensions, you are correct. Unless once we have a person in our custody, a physician needs to certify them. And until then, we have to maintain custody of that individual for safety reasons for everyone. And there's no other ways going about it. With the e-scooters, bikes, helmets, our volunteers, our members are, even they were in Steveston not too long ago, a few weeks ago, engaging with our citizens, having discussions, conversations, handing out pamphlets about road
Suggest
safety.
you go to
and
the bike parks too.
Yes, yeah, and e-scooters, so we will continue to work on that. Block watch, we have our block watch coordinator, and the numbers are going up slowly, but there are still efforts are being made to enhance that program as well. And failing to stop a sign or any traffic concerns, violations, we get those complaints from the public as well, and if there's high-risk area, high-risk intersections, we have proactive and planned enforcement in those areas, and I see quite a few violation tickets issued. So once we target a zone, and then we move on to the other one. So I encourage our community and our citizens to report any concerns we have, and then we are able to pass them on to our road safety unit and then formulate that into our action plan. And River Road, Cambie Road, and Cambie.
Thank you.
Keep that in place. So
Great
thank
job.
you.
Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, through the chair. I just want to comment on CS 37 on the active, the noteworthy files, the 2 assaults, violent assaults and armed robbery, and just that suspects were arrested in all 3 cases. I just want to thank you so much for the whole force and the work on that.
Thank you.
I just had another question on CS 41. Our year-to-date crime rates. I see our violent crime rate is is the lowest of those 5 communities, but our property crime rate is the second highest, even higher than Surrey's. Not that I don't mean anything by that. Sorry. I'm just wondering, what is this rate, like this 23.05? Like, is that like a per capita, or is it I don't understand what that rate is calculated on.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Glanders, these rates are calculated by our analyst team, and it's usually the number of offenses related to the population in question. So those numbers are derived in that fashion. To answer your question regarding property crime, we have seen an increase in offenses such as shoplifting, mischief, theft under. Those offenses, have gone up in other jurisdictions as well. But if you look at property crime, and especially commercial break-and-enters or break-and-enters to private dwellings, residential B&Es, those numbers have been steadily going down. And we are reaching our lowest numbers. These type of offenses, when you look at commercial break-and-enters or residential break-and-enters, they are done by people with some level of sophistication. There's planning involved, and so we have our crime reduction initiatives through our CompStat model, where we have been targeting these individuals. So those numbers are declining, and one of those numbers are almost at a 10-year low, so which is really good to see. But when you look at shoplifting, you look at theft, mischief, and other sort of lower level crime, they are going up. And another thing that I have noticed is that, just recently, we had an operation where we targeted shoplifters in town, in which we do that regularly. Out of the 18 people that were arrested, there were 3 youths were arrested as well. But with the exception of those 3 youth, the rest of the 15 people were from outside Richmond. Yeah. So there are people coming in here And I have mentioned this before, we have the Transit Canada line, so people are coming from outside, and that's elevating our numbers, right?
Yeah, so if all the just to follow up, all the shoplifting numbers and whatnot are in there, then it would make sense that it's fairly high compared to, say, Coquitlam, because if people are coming in from Vancouver, we're just one quick line on the Canada line, as opposed to it would be harder to get to Coquitlam.
Yes, and again, through the chair to Councillor Glanders, the last operation we had here about 3 weeks ago, targeting shoplifters, a lot of these individuals who are committing thefts in our city, that stolen merchandise is going to downtown East Side for sale.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, so,
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
We have a recommendation?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Thank you. Briefing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 3 things I would like to do a briefing on. First, now that the provincial orders have been lifted, provincial emergencies are over, we are no longer deploying our officers to whether it's, wildfires or any major events, so that has halted. Councillor Day had brought up the recruiting piece. So that's the second thing I wanted to just to provide a quick update. Like in the past, our city has benefited from recruiting local talent to join the police force and return back to Richmond detachment to serve the community where they have lived or grown up. There are many members at the Richmond detachment that I know who were born in Richmond, who went to school here, they have worked here, or they volunteered in some capacity. Some of them were first-line responders with the ambulance and whatnot, who decided to join the RCMP, and they were posted back in Richmond. So it's really nice to see that. So with that on mind and being proactive to recruit, to identify, recruit talent here in our city, on August 23rd, a media release had gone out that we were planning to host a recruiting session. So the last one that we did was on September 16th. That was done here locally at a university campus. Really good turnout, and there were many interested candidates who signed the applications right on the spot to join the police force. Over 30% of the people who showed up, and it was a big group. And so that is really refreshing to see that there is that interest, people who live here, work here, and they want to come back and give their service back to the community. And as I indicated earlier on, with our recruiting policies here in E Division in British Columbia, if somebody is joining from BC, they will come back to BC, and very strong likelihood they can also come back to the city of their choice. And the second recruiting session is planned for tomorrow, and that one will be done at the RCMP main detachment. So far, the numbers are looking pretty good, so I'm looking forward to be part of that event as well tomorrow evening. So obviously DEPO is a 6-month program, and whether it's people that we are recruiting from Richmond, or there are others who are joining the police force, Richmond is a beautiful place. It's a top choice for officers want to come here. So there's members who are already serving, they want to take lateral transfers. There are others who want to take promotional transfers. And even at the depot level, when members are training, even though they are not from Richmond, they are asking to come to Richmond. So we are in a good position now. And finally, I just want to quickly talk about this year, in May of this year, the RCMP celebrated 150th anniversary of serving the Canadian public. And during this year, the Richmond RCMP, and particular thanks go to Sergeant Catherine Chong, and it was her and her team. They took the opportunity to In the spirit of, celebrating the 150th anniversary of the RCMP, Sergeant Chong created an initiative to give back to the city of Richmond. So for the past 7 months, Richmond RCMP profiled a local organization and raised funds or donations to support them. Our goal was to give back to as many different people, including seniors, children, homeless individuals, vulnerable group, people, including animals, in Richmond, where possible. The Acts of Giving campaign started by Sergeant Chong included donation boxes that were set up at the main detachment, at the airport sub-detachment, and our CPO3 for our members, our municipal employees, and volunteers to place their donations. So over the past 7 months, I'll just quickly summarize what we have done. Starting in March, we assisted the BC SPCA with quite a substantial donation of animal crates, beds, foods, blankets, towels, treats, toys, leashes, you name it. I was part of the team unloading the boxes when we delivered those to SPCA, and it was really well received and appreciated by the team there. In April, we assisted Nova House and Richmond Family Place. So Nova House, as you know, it's operated through the Chimo Community Services. It's a 30-day safe housing facility for women and children seeking refuge from violence. And they needed some household items to support the families and children. So box loaded of items boxes and boxes were delivered to them as well. The Richmond Family Place, which is a nonprofit multi-service family resource program, which is open to all families in Richmond. They also received a substantial clothing and other items that they needed to support the clients that they have. In May, we supported Feed UKate program. This is a Nutrition for Learning. This is a Richmond School District program that was established in late 2012 by a committee of students and staff. Here we raised over $1,000, and which was given to the institution. And in May of this year, again, we supported Ronald McDonald House with a donation of over $1,200. In June, the Canadian Blood Services, our members, staff, employees contributed by donating blood services to help those who need it. In July, we supported Cops for Cancer. There was a barbecue event held, and money was raised that went to Cops for Cancer. In August, $1,000 was donated for YVR for Kids charity. And in September, we donated to the Richmond Food Bank. And again, tremendous work and lots of individuals, teams from everywhere from our office, including staff, regular members, being very generous in helping these important charities in our city. And I'll end that at that good note. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Any comments or questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have a manager's report?
Adjournment.
Thank you.